What is up, YouTube? Welcome back. Aeneas here. Time for another top 5 brews for the new set MTG Bro Brothers War. Today I'm bringing you kind of a new deck that hasn't really been seen I don't know if it's ever been seen before, but this one is DIMIR Draw 2. So in this new set, they have kind of a heavy theme for DIMIR colors about drawing 2. I think a lot of it was aimed towards the limited set, but actually a lot of the cards were pretty strong, and combined with some of the ones we already have in standard, I think there's actually a pretty decent shell here for some sort of DIMIR Draw 2, either in this kind of lower mid-range shell or possibly bigger with like Teferi 5 and stuff like that. But yeah, let's go through the cards. Let's take a look, discuss the picks and how the deck works and the main theme for the deck. All right, so yeah, as the name suggests, the main theme for the deck is you want to draw 2 cards on your turn, pretty much every turn. And if you can do it on your opponent's turn, great, but with the way I have it set up currently, you're mainly going to be doing this on your turn, but you get enough value that it should be fine. And your kind of key cards for drawing are Kaito Shizuki, which is a very powerful planeswalker that whenever you attack with a creature, then you get to draw a card for free. And it can also make an unblockable 1/1, which kind of enables the drawing effect of this. And there's an ultimate, but the ultimates almost never happens because you mainly just draw cards with this card. So yeah. So that one's really good for drawing. And then we also have this new card, Gix Yawgmoth Praetor. And it says whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may pay 1, and if they do, draw a card. So if you deal damage to the opponent, if you pay 1 life, then you draw a card. And so that's going to enable all of your creatures because they all have these draw payoffs, basically. All right, and so we have those two. And a couple other ways that we can draw is this 2 mana card. So this is a blue and a black for a 2/3. And it says, whenever Evangel of Synthesis enters the battlefield, draw a card, then discard a card. So discarding a card, but the main thing is that you drew a card, so it's going to trigger your draw effect creatures. And as long as you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn, Evangel of Synthesis gets +1 and has menace. So the hope is that pretty much always this card is going to be a 3/3 with menace for 2 mana that also triggers your payoff spells when it enters the battlefield. So that's pretty good just on its own. Then some of the other payoffs we have are Fairy Vandal, which a lot of you know, Flash Creature 1/2 for 2 mana. And whenever you draw your second card, it gets +1/+1. So you're going to play this on 2, maybe on the opponent's turn. Then 3, you're like dropping your Kaito or your Gix, or maybe another Evangel of Synthesis. And this will become a 2/3 with flying. And each turn it's going to grow, and it's going to grow, and it's going to grow, and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And also we have this Thopter mechanic, same thing. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 on this, and it's going to just keep growing and growing and growing. And when it dies, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. So this is, I don't know if it's better or worse than Fairy Vandal, but when it dies, it gets you a 1/1, so at least you don't just lose your board if they board wipe or something like that. And the 1/1 plays very nicely with Yawgmoth and with Kaito as well. So they wipe the board. You could still have the 1/1 and then drop your Gix, or if you already still have the Kaito, you attack in, you get a free card again, and you start triggering your draw creatures again and again. Yeah, so that's pretty good. And it doesn't stop there. We still have more payoffs for drawing. So we have this one. 3 mana Gurgling Anointer. It's a 1/3, which is a little bit weak, but it's flying, and whenever you draw your second card, put a +1/+1 on this creature. And when it dies, return target creature card with mana value less than or equal to Gurgling Anointer's power from your graveyard to the battlefield. So starts off with 1, which you might think, well, that's not going to return anything to the battlefield, right? But we actually do have a lot of 1 power creatures in the deck, like Evolved Sleeper, Fairy Vandal, this Lantern Bearer, even another Gurgling Anointer. So yeah. Yeah, I guess they can kind of just loop each other now that I think about it. Interesting. It doesn't say not named Gurgling Anointer. Interesting. Maybe there's some crazy loop shenanigans you could have going on with Gurgling Anointer. I hadn't thought of that before, but seems like it's possible, so cool. But anyway, so there's quite a few things to hit with 1 power, but also, if you just draw 1 card 1 time, it gets up to 2, and now you're returning almost everything in the deck. And if you manage to get it up to 3, then it's going to return everything. So pretty sweet, but it's 3 mana. That's the big downside. So not sure which one's better, the Fairy Vandal coming in at 2 or this one coming in at 3. So we'll have to see, but the value on this one is a little bit higher, so it seems a little bit better. Okay, and then the last kind of payoff and value card we have for drawing cards is this one, Gixian Puppeteer. So typically in these types of decks where you're like attacking anyone with creatures that start off kind of small to draw your cards, the problem is that you're not doing a whole lot of damage at the beginning until they start growing. And if you're facing another aggro deck, you might be kind of getting attacked out and losing the race. So this one kind of helps make up for that, because whenever you draw your second card, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So you're doing a drain for 2 life. That's pretty significant, to be honest. Yes, you can only do it once per turn, but still, I mean, kind of a 4 health swing basically every turn is no joke, and it's a 4 mana for a 4/3, so the body's still pretty good. And on top of that, when this creature dies, return another target creature with mana value 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. So you can get back your Gix to enable more drawing if you need it, or maybe you want one of your payoffs, so you could get back your Thopter Mechanic, or you could get back your Gurgling Anointer. So yeah, every other card in the deck, creature card in the deck, will be able to be returned with this creature. So this is kind of our top end payoff for that. So all of it is pretty sweet. The 1-drops that we have in here do not synergize as well, but they're still pretty good, and I'll explain why. So we have Lantern Bearer, which is a 1 mana 1/1 flying. The key here is that it's got the evasion, so it can work with Kaito on turn 3 or Gix on turn 3. It also has the disturb effect, so you can cast the backside from the graveyard, and it's an enchantment that gives your creature +1/+1 and flying. So you play a turn 1, they kill it. Oh man! You play a turn 2 creature like maybe this guy or this one. These ones don't have flying off the bat, so then on turn 3, if you want to, you can put it on here. You've got a bigger creature. It's got flying now. It can get in and trigger your Kaitos and your Gigs and stuff like that. So yeah, synergy there. And of course we have the fan favorite Evolved Sleeper, 1 mana 1/1 in black that people kind of can't block because you'll just leave up some mana and they don't know if you're going to pump it to make it bigger, or even give it Death Touch and they don't want to trade for it. So you've got that going on. And of course, if you can pump it a few times, then you can start drawing cards with it, which is also synergizing with your other cards like the Evangel and the Thopter and the Fairy Vandal and stuff like that, like we talked about. So yeah, definitely has some synergy there if you can pump a little bit of mana into it. And if you don't pump, you could cast the Fairy Vandal or one of these instant spells as well. So it's not like it's going to be dead every time. Alright, and yeah, I just added a few basic removal package, so a little bit of cut down, a little bit of growth for the throat, soul transfer. I liked the one of soul transfer because maybe we'll want to get like a Kaito back or a Gix back if we're really struggling for card advantage. But I think in theory we should be fine on the cards because of the amount of draw we have going on. And the fact that we can kind of like bin our lands to this guy and get some creatures and stuff like that. But yeah, if you need it, you can bring it back instead of using it as a removal. And maybe you have like a big creature that you need to kill, like a Shieldred or something like that. So, yep, pretty flexible removal. And land package, pretty standard. We do have the new Underground River to help with the blue-black aggro decks, which this one is a little bit more aggressive than normal. So yeah, that's it for the concept of the deck. Pretty simple, pretty cool, and I love to see that they're trying some new things for DIMIR. Of course, I'm always miss the old like yoink your opponent's spells and play those things like Siphon Insight or Thief of Sanity was one of my favorites. Evasive thing that can steal people's cards. So it's not quite like that, but still along a similar vein where you've got evasive creatures drawing you cards, getting you lots of value. So that's pretty neat. I guess the last thing I want to mention, I think you could do a slightly bigger version of this deck if you wanted to. I lean towards the more aggressive one because it seemed a little bit better to me, but you could go up to something like adding the Teferi 5, which draws you cards each turn and makes the tokens that grow from drawing. That seems very, very good, to be honest. So if you can figure out some cuts here, you could throw in a couple of those Teferis. There's also Defiler of Dreams, where every time you cast a blue permanent, you draw some cards. Uh, there's a decent amount of blue in here, but yeah, if you want to run Defiler of Dreams, I think you would need probably to replace maybe Evolve Sleeper with a different blue 1-drop, something like that, so you have a little bit more blue permanents in the deck. But yeah, that's just a few of the things I was thinking about along with these guys. But deck seems pretty cool, and it's definitely gonna do well against aggro. Not aggro. I think it's gonna do well against like control decks or any deck that's a little bit slower. Might even do well against mono black because you got 1-drops and 2-drops, and you're drawing a lot of cards, so you mitigate all the discard from Liliana. They don't get a whole lot of value off their Invoke Despair. So yeah, I think it stands a pretty good chance against those kind of decks, but you'll have to see how it does against other aggressive decks. But maybe the Gixie and Puppeteer will be good enough to offset the other aggressive decks. All right, that's it for this. Still got 3 more of the top 5 new brews coming up later in the week, so get ready for that. And then, of course, as always, the set drops on the 15th, so really looking forward to that as well. Until next time, hope you have fun and see ya.